My beloved brothers and sisters, we find ourselves living in a time where the distinction between the sacred and the profane has been largely obliterated. If you walk into many Catholic parishes today, you are struck not by the overwhelming presence of the Almighty, but by an atmosphere that feels indistinguishable from a social club or a secular lecture hall. There is a profound silence, not the silence of adoration, but the silence of indifference. People walk in with coffee, they engage in casual chatter, they dress as if they are heading to a shopping mall, and they kneel, or worse, they fail to kneel, without a second thought about who truly dwells within the tabernacle. We have suffered a catastrophic loss of the sense of the sacred. This is not merely a matter of liturgical preference or a desire for the good old days. It is a fundamental crisis of faith. When we lose the sense of the sacred, we lose the objective reality of the supernatural. If we do not treat God with the reverence due to His supreme majesty, it is a clear indicator that regardless of what we claim to believe, our interior disposition does not fully embrace the reality of the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. The Church has always taught that the exterior expresses the interior. If your exterior actions in the house of God are sloppy, irreverent, or casual, it is because your interior understanding of the holy sacrifice of the Mass has been eroded. We have forgotten that we are not here to be entertained, and we are not here to socialize. We are here to participate in the representation of the sacrifice of Calvary. For many Catholics, the concept of reverence has been dismissed as a relic of the past, something unnecessary or even stifling. But I tell you, reverence is a virtue. It is a component of the virtue of religion. It is the proper response of the creature to the Creator. When that response is missing, the faith begins to wither because we stop looking at God as God and start looking at Him as an equal, or worse, as a distant abstraction. Today, we must begin the work of recovering the sense of the sacred. We must understand that the way we conduct ourselves before the Blessed Sacrament is the most accurate barometer of our soul's health. If we wish to restore our faith, we must first restore our reverence. In this series, we are going to look at what the Church has always taught, what the saints have practiced, and how you can begin to transform your life by simply learning how to stand in the presence of the living God. Consider for a moment what the Church actually teaches about the Holy Eucharist. We are not dealing with a symbol. We are not dealing with a mere representation or a community meal. According to the perennial teaching of the Catholic Church, defined infallibly at the Council of Trent, the Eucharist is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. It is the creator of the universe, veiled under the appearance of bread and wine. Now, I want you to ask yourself a very serious question. If you truly, objectively believed that the Almighty God, the one who spoke the cosmos into existence, the one before whom the angels tremble and the demons flee, was physically present just a few feet away from you, how would you behave? Would you walk into His presence checking your cell phone? Would you dress as though you were going to the beach or lounging in your living room? Would you casually stroll up to receive Him in the palm of your hand without making the slightest act of adoration? We have a profound disconnect between what we say we believe and how we actually act. And the enemy, the devil, absolutely loves this. Satan knows that he cannot destroy the Church from the outside, so his primary tactic is to erode it from the inside through a diabolical disorientation. He whispers the lie that reverence doesn't matter, that God only cares about your heart, and that exterior acts of piety are just rigid traditionalism. But that is a lie straight from the pit of hell. Human beings are body and soul composites. What we do with our bodies profoundly impacts what happens in our souls. Thomas Aquinas teaches us that the virtue of religion requires us to offer God the honor that is uniquely due to Him. When we abandon the physical postures of reverence, genuflecting properly, dressing modestly and respectfully, maintaining a sacred silence, we are systematically dismantling our interior faith. The casualness you see in the pews is not a sign of a welcoming community. It is the physical manifestation of a loss of supernatural faith. Let us look at a very specific and frankly tragic manifestation of this crisis, how we present ourselves physically, specifically how we dress for the holy sacrifice of the Mass. There was a time not too long ago in the history of the church when Catholics understood the concept of Sunday best. You wore your best clothing not out of vanity or to impress your neighbors, but as a physical act of sacrifice, preparation, and reverence. It was an exterior declaration that what you were about to do, worship the triune God, was the most important event of your entire week. Today, look around the typical parish. You see people arriving in athletic wear, shorts, flip-flops, and clothing that is objectively immodest. Now, some will immediately protest, saying, God only looks at the heart. He doesn't care what I wear. That is a symptom of a Protestantized, emotionalist theology. God created you as a body and a soul. To claim that your physical presentation does not reflect your interior disposition is a fundamental denial of human nature. When you dress for the Holy Mass as if you are going to a secular sporting event or lounging in your living room, your body is telling your soul that the Mass is a common, ordinary, mundane event. Furthermore, we must address the virtue of modesty, which is a sub-virtue of temperance. Modesty is not simply about covering oneself to prevent inciting lust in others, though that remains a grave moral obligation. Modesty is also about decorum. It is about behaving and dressing in a manner appropriate to the reality of the situation. When you step into a Catholic church, you are stepping onto Golgotha. You are standing at the foot of the cross. You are entering the throne room of the King of Kings. The demons absolutely despise modesty and reverence because these virtues safeguard the sacred. The enemy knows that if he can get you to treat the Mass casually, your faith in the real presence will inevitably die. When you dress casually, you lower your psychological and spiritual guard. You become overly familiar with the sacred, and in the spiritual life, familiarity breeds contempt. If you want to restore your faith, start by restoring your preparation. Lay out your best clothes on Saturday night. Dress in a way that requires a little effort, a little physical sacrifice. Let your body teach your soul that you are about to approach the Creator of the universe. Let us delve deeper into the spiritual warfare aspect of this crisis. As an exorcist, I can tell you with absolute certainty that the demonic realm, demons possess a preternatural intelligence. They know exactly who resides within the tabernacle. When they are forced to confront the presence of Christ, they react with sheer terror and violent aversion. Yet, look at how modern man approaches the very same God. We saunter down the aisle with an arrogance that is, frankly, shocking to the angels. In the books of Isaiah and Revelation, we read that the highest choirs of angels, the seraphim and cherubim, beings of unimaginable power, purity, and intellect, veil their faces and fall prostrate before the throne of God, crying out continually, Holy, holy, hoy. If the sinless angels in heaven tremble in adoring awe before the Almighty, how is it that we, fallen and sinful creatures who rely entirely on His mercy, dare to approach Him as if He were merely a buddy or a casual acquaintance? This casual attitude in our parishes is not a historical accident. It is a highly successful, coordinated, demonic psychological operation. The enemy knows how human nature works. He knows that our bodies dictate our interior dispositions. If he can strip away the exterior acts of the virtue of religion, if he can get you to stop genuflecting properly, to stop dressing with modesty and dignity, to stop keeping a holy silence in the sanctuary, he knows your interior faith will soon collapse entirely. Silence itself is a necessary garment of reverence. When you enter the nave of the church, you are entering a space set apart strictly and exclusively for the worship of the divine majesty. The nave is not the parish hall. It is not the parking lot. The incessant talking and socializing before and after Mass is a direct assault on the sacredness of the space. It robs others of their ability to prepare their souls for the holy sacrifice and demonstrates a profound lack of awareness of the Eucharistic presence. When you speak in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament, unless it is absolutely strictly necessary, you are effectively telling God that your trivial conversation with your neighbor is more important than your preparation to receive Him. We must reclaim the rigid discipline of holy silence if we ever hope to hear the voice of God again. Now, we must consider the theological reality of how grace actually operates in the soul, particularly when we approach the sacraments. The Church teaches that the sacraments work ex opere operato, meaning they are effective in and of themselves because it is Christ who works through them. However, the amount of grace you actually receive, the fruitfulness of that sacrament in your specific soul, depends entirely on your interior disposition. This is what theologians call ex opere operantis, and this is precisely where the virtue of reverence becomes a matter of spiritual life and death. When you approach the altar with a casual, distracted, or irreverent disposition, you are actively constricting the channel of grace to your soul. You might physically receive the host, but spiritually, your hands are closed. Street, Thomas Aquinas makes it clear that devotion and reverence are the primary ways we expand our capacity to receive God. If you walk up to Holy Communion chewing gum, looking around at the choir, or dressed inappropriately, your soul is signaling to God, "I do not recognize your majesty." Consequently, the profound transformative grace that is available in the Eucharist simply bounces off a hardened, indifferent heart. The demons understand this theological principle perfectly. They know they cannot stop a validly ordained priest from consecrating the Eucharist. The Mass will happen. The bread and wine will become the body and blood of Christ. Since the enemy cannot stop the objective reality of the sacrament, his entire strategy shifts to attacking your subjective reception of it. If a demon can convince you to drop your reverence, to view the Mass as a community gathering, to abandon kneeling, to chat idly in the pews, he successfully neutralizes the power of the Eucharist in your life. You become spiritually starved while sitting at the greatest banquet in the universe. Restoring reverence is not about following arbitrary rules. It is about tearing down the demonic barriers that are starving your soul of sanctifying grace. Let us examine the psychological conditioning that has led us to this point. We live in a culture that has systematically dismantled all natural hierarchies, traditional boundaries, and exterior signs of respect. The modern world tells you that comfort is the highest good and that casual self-expression is the ultimate virtue. But the Catholic Church teaches that the highest good is God, and the ultimate virtue is charity, which requires self-forgetfulness, discipline, and sacrifice. When you bring the modern obsession with comfort into the sanctuary, you are allowing a fallen secular culture to dictate the terms of your worship. To dress immodestly or overly casually for the holy sacrifice of the Mass is fundamentally a failure in the virtue of justice. According to Street, Thomas Aquinas, justice is the moral virtue that consists in the constant and firm will to give their due to God and neighbor. What is due to God? Infinite honor, profound adoration, and the absolute best that we possess. When you show up to Mass in athletic wear, shorts, or flip-flops, you are objectively stating through your physical actions that God is not worth the effort of putting on proper attire. You are rendering to the Almighty the leftovers of your wardrobe, which reflects the leftovers of your interior devotion. The demons actively mock us for this. They observe the Creator of the universe humbling himself, lowering himself to appear under the fragile veil of bread and wine out of an unfathomable love for mankind. And then they observe his creatures, the very beings he suffered and died to redeem, treating him with less respect than they would give to a secular judge, a bank manager, or a local politician. Furthermore, this casualness systematically destroys the faith of the next generation. Children learn primarily by observation. Their psychological and spiritual formation is deeply tied to the physical actions of their parents. If a father tells his son that the Eucharist is the living God, but that same father dresses for Sunday Mass as if he is going to a weekend baseball game, the child's intellect will immediately process the contradiction. The physical actions will always drown out the theological words. You cannot catechize your children to believe in the real presence if your physical demeanor signals that the Mass is a mundane chore. The recovery of reverence must begin with you, the adults, leading by a rigorous, uncompromising physical example. If you study the great saints and mystics of the Church, you will find a common thread. They all possessed a profound, almost paralyzing reverence for the Holy Eucharist. Street. Francis of Assisi, a man known for his radical poverty, insisted that the sacred vessels used for the Mass be made of the finest precious metals. He understood that while we should be poor, God deserves our absolute best. Street. John Chrysostom described the altar as being surrounded by choirs of angels, trembling in awe. Do you think Street John Chrysostom would have tolerated someone approaching that altar in a tank top and gym shorts? The modern crisis of reverence is a direct result of losing our eschatological focus. We have forgotten the four last things: death, judgment, heaven, and hell. When you lose sight of eternity, you become entirely focused on the temporal, the comfortable, and the immediate. The holy sacrifice of the Mass is meant to be a foretaste of heaven. It is where time and eternity intersect. When you dress casually for Mass, you are pulling the liturgy down to the level of the mundane world, rather than allowing the liturgy to elevate you to the heavenly reality. Furthermore, this casualness is an offense against charity. Your exterior demeanor at Mass either helps or hinders the devotion of those around you. When a woman dresses immodestly or a man dresses sloppily, they become a distraction. They pull the eyes and the minds of their fellow parishioners away from the altar and toward themselves. This is a profound spiritual theft. You are stealing the focus that rightfully belongs to God and forcing it upon yourself. True charity demands that we conduct ourselves in a way that directs all attention, all glory, and all reverence toward the tabernacle. When you prepare yourself rigorously for Mass, when you dress with dignity and modesty, you become a silent witness to the truth of the real presence, helping to build up the faith of everyone around you. Let us also address the argument of intent. Many well-meaning Catholics will say, "Father, I'm dressing this way because it's comfortable, not because I want to be disrespectful." But in moral theology, we must distinguish between subjective intent and objective reality. Your subjective intent might be harmless, but the objective reality of your action tells a different story. If you show up to a wedding or a funeral in gym clothes, people will rightly assume you do not respect the occasion, regardless of your interior feelings. Why do we apply a lower standard of objective respect to the Holy Mass than we do to secular events? The reality is that human beings communicate through signs and symbols. Clothing is a highly potent symbol. It communicates identity, purpose, and respect. When you dress for Mass, you are communicating to the angels, to the saints, to your fellow parishioners, and to God Himself your objective assessment of what the Mass is. If you dress casually, you are objectively communicating that the Mass is a casual event. You are contributing to the systematic desensitization of the Catholic faithful to the reality of the supernatural. The enemy uses this loss of reverence as a wedge to destroy the virtue of faith. Once you stop treating the Eucharist as God, it is only a matter of time before you stop believing that the Eucharist is God. The statistics bear this out. The majority of Catholics today no longer believe in the real presence. This did not happen overnight. It happened slowly, incrementally, as we abandoned the exterior signs of reverence, the altar rails, the communion on the tongue, the modest and dignified dress. If we wish to see a revival of Eucharistic faith, it must begin with a revival of Eucharistic reverence. We must return to the practice of giving God our absolute best, not out of a rigid legalism, but out of a profound sacrificial love for the one who gave his entire life for us. The practical application of reverence requires a conscious, intentional effort to reorient our actions. What does this look like in the life of a Catholic? It begins the moment you wake up on Sunday morning. You must recognize that Sunday is the Lord's Day, a day set apart. Your preparation for Mass should reflect this reality. You should fast for at least an hour before receiving communion, but ideally you should cultivate a spirit of interior fasting and preparation from the moment you rise. When it comes to dress, the standard is not what is currently fashionable or what is most comfortable. The standard is modesty, dignity, and respect for the King of Kings. Men should wear suits, or at the very least, dress slacks and a collared shirt. Women should wear modest dresses or skirts that fall below the knee, with high necklines and covered shoulders. The use of a chapel veil, while not strictly mandated by current canon law, is a beautiful and ancient tradition that powerfully signals reverence and submission to God. It is an exterior sign of the interior reality that the sacred must be veiled. Furthermore, when you arrive at the church, you must conduct yourself with the utmost gravity. Genuflect deeply, all the way to the floor when you pass the tabernacle, recognizing that Christ is physically present. Maintain strict silence in the nave of the church, allowing yourself and others to prepare their souls for the holy sacrifice. Do not engage in casual conversations or socializing When you approach the altar to receive communion, do so with profound adoration. The traditional practice of receiving communion on the tongue while kneeling is objectively the most reverent posture, as it clearly demonstrates our utter dependence on God and minimizes the risk of desecration. By consciously adopting these practices, you are not merely following rules, you are actively participating in the restoration of the sacred, retraining your body to teach your soul how to worship. Ultimately, my brothers and sisters, what we are discussing here is not merely a matter of aesthetics, personal preference, or archaic rubrics. It is a matter of profound spiritual warfare. We are living in a time of unprecedented diabolical activity, where the enemy is doing everything in his power to profane what is holy and to drag the human soul down into the mud of secularism. By choosing to reclaim the sense of the sacred, by choosing to dress with modesty and dignity, by kneeling in adoration, and by maintaining a strict and holy silence, you are engaging in a direct and powerful act of spiritual combat. You are driving a stake into the heart of the demonic agenda that seeks to obscure and ultimately destroy the reality of the holy sacrifice of the Mass. Do not expect the world, or even many within the Church today, to understand or applaud you for this. You will likely face mockery, misunderstanding, or accusations of being rigid, judgmental, or out of touch. But human respect is a deadly poison to the spiritual life. You must care only about the judgment of Almighty God. The great saints and martyrs were never concerned with fitting in with the comfortable culture of their time. They were entirely consumed with rendering fitting worship to the King of Kings. You must become the faithful remnant. You must be the ones who hold the line, who preserve the sacred traditions of the Church, and who pass them on to the next generation through the undeniable, visible witness of your physical actions and your deep interior devotion. When you stand before the judgment seat of Christ, and every single one of us will, He will not ask you if you were comfortable during Mass. He will not ask if the liturgy entertained you. He will look at how you responded to the greatest, most incomprehensible gift He ever gave to humanity, His own body, blood, soul, and divinity. Let your response be one of profound awe, trembling reverence, and total unyielding submission. Change your habits today. Prepare your soul on Saturday night, govern your body on Sunday morning, and approach the altar with the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of all wisdom. If you do this with a sincere heart, I promise you the floodgates of sanctifying grace will open in your life. Your faith, which may have grown cold and casual, will be radically restored, and you will begin to experience the profound, unshakable peace that comes only from a soul perfectly aligned with the majesty of God. Let us pray for the grace of profound reverence, that in all things His holy name may be glorified.